information. So let's have a look at the example. So let's erase this off, and likewise we're going to declare a variable called index, and we're going to set the value of the index with 0, I guess. Okay, I guess I had a problem. Something came up. And likewise we have, and I made a mistake. Okay, now this is sorry for that. This is not the actual, yeah. Now it is perfect. So we are initializing the variable with a value of 0, and the reason we are using this value of 0 is because our counting starts from 0 when we are trying to retrieve an element from the pages array. So I think you remember that every array counting starts from 0. That's why we are setting the value of our variable with a value that is 0. So let's write the code. So let's write echo, and we are going to call the pages array, and we're going to pass in the index variable, and then like before we are going to use the br or line break tag from HTML, and at the end we are going to increment the index variable, and likewise we are going to add in a new condition that's going to determine the lifetime of this loop. So we are going to like before, we're going to say index is less than the count, the number of less than the number of elements inside the pages array. So I guess we are good to go, and let's save the code. Let's get back to the browser, let's refresh the page, and let me bring this up. So likewise, the page is showing you the exact same thing as before, because we are we are just repeating the same thing like before, and we're not doing anything new. But what happens if we try to change the condition in this context? So if we try to change the condition in this context, and I'm going to show you how this change will affect the code. Like if I provide a condition that is invalid at the beginning, and if the condition is invalid at the beginning in terms of the while loop, your while loop won't even start at the beginning. And similarly for the while loop, because both the while loop and the for loop checks the condition at the beginning or at the starting, they won't even run at least for once. So inside the do while loop, even if I provide an invalid condition, it will at least run for once. So let's have a look at that principle. So let's erase this off. Let's say that index is less than 0. Let's make this like that. And let's save this code. Let's bring up the browser. Let's refresh the page. And when we refresh the page, you can see clearly that our condition is actually false, which is our code in terms of the while loop, it wouldn't have run at least for once, but because it's a do while loop, and do while loop is actually the inverse of the while loop and the for loop, which means the do while loop will run the code or it will execute the process at least for once, and then it will look into the condition later on. So let's bring up the browser again, and we here you'll see that we have got a result. So let's break it down and let's read it in terms of human language. So we are telling the compiler, do these statements or do these processes or execute these processes or execute these statements. So when we pass in a command to the compiler, it is actually obliging to our command. So it's echoing out the first element from the pages array, and it's providing a line break after this element, although we can't see that line break unless we add another element to this list, to this printed list on the browser. So this code in here gets executed, this line of statement gets executed. So that's why we see that element, the value being printed out. So the pages array has got the home value or string in the index number of 0. So this index is getting replaced by the value of 0, and then it's adding a beer tag or a line break tag. Then again we have got another statement which increments the value of index by 1. So at the end of this loop's body, or at the end of this block of code, we have got the index with the value of 1. Now currently the value of index is now 1. So in here our index variable will contain 1. But because the loop is now going to check whether index is less than 0. So it is checking, it is actually checking that